The traditional Berber religion is the ancient and native set of beliefs and deities adhered to by the Berber autochthones of North Africa. Many ancient Berber beliefs were developed locally, whereas others were influenced over time through contact with other traditional African religions, or borrowed during antiquity from the Punic religion, Judaism, Iberian mythology, and the Hellenistic religion. The most recent influence came from Islam and pre-Islamic Arab religion during the medieval period. Some of the ancient Berber beliefs still exist today subtly within the Berber popular culture and tradition. Funerary practices. Archaeological research on prehistoric tombs in the Maghreb shows that their bodies of the dead were painted with ochre. While this practice was known to the Ibero-Mauritanians, this culture seems to have been primarily a Capsian industry. The dead were also sometimes buried with shells of ostrich eggs, jewelry, and weapons. Bodies were usually buried in a fetal position. Unlike the majority of mainland Berbers, the Guanches mummified the dead. Additionally, Fabrizio-Mori discovered a Libyan mummy older than any comparable ancient Egyptian mummy in 1958. Cult of the Dead. The authors of the book The Berbers stated that the cult of the dead was one of the distinguishing characteristics of the Berbers in antiquity. Pomponius Mela reported that the Orgili considered the spirits of their ancestors to be gods. They swore by them and consulted them. After making requests, they slept in the tombs to await responses in dreams. Herodotus noted the same practice among the Nasamones, who inhabited the deserts around Siwn Orgwilla. He wrote, "They swear by the men among themselves who are reported to have been the most righteous and brave by these, I say, laying hands upon the tombs, and they divine by visiting the sepulchral mounds of their ancestors and lying down to sleep upon them after having prayed, and whatsoever thing the man sees in his dream, this he accepts." The Berbers worshipped their kings, too. The tombs of the Numidian kings are among the most notable monuments left by the classical Berbers. The veneration of saints which exists among the modern Berbers in the form of maraboutism, which is widespread in northwest Africa, may or may not contain traces of prior beliefs or customs concerning the dead. Ancient Berber tombs. The tombs of the early people and their ancestors indicate that the Berbers and their ancestors believed in life after death. The prehistoric men of northwest Africa buried bodies in little holes. When they realized that bodies buried in unsecured holes were dug up by wild animals, they began to bury them in deeper ones. Later, they buried the dead in caves, tumuli, tombs in rocks, mounds, and other types of tombs. These tombs evolved from primitive structures to much more elaborate ones, such as the Pyramidal Tombs spread throughout northern Africa. The honor of being buried in such a tomb appears to have been reserved for those who were most important to the communities. These pyramid tombs have attracted the attention of some scholars, such as Muhammad Shafik, who wrote a book discussing the history of several of the tombs that have survived into modern times. He tried to relate the pyramidal Berber tombs with the great Egyptian pyramids on the basis of the etymological and historical data. The best-known Berber pyramids of the 19-meter pre-Roman Numidian pyramid of the Medrasen and the 30-meter ancient Mauritanian pyramid. The Numidian pyramid in Tapaza is also known as Bor-Urumia, or Tomb of Juba and Sipax, mistranslated by the French colonizer as Tomb of the Christian Woman, was indeed mislabeled, as the tomb appears to have held a Berber king, perhaps Juba II, the king of Mauritania. Megalithic culture. Augustine of Hippo mentioned that the polytheistic Africans worshipped the rocks. Apuleius stated as well that rocks were worshipped in the 2nd century. The megalithic culture may have been part of a cult of the dead or of star worship. The monument of Masura is the best-known megalithic monument in northwest Africa. It is composed of a circle of megaliths surrounding a tumulus. The highest megalith is longer than 5 meters. According to legend, it is the sepulchre of the mythical Berber king Antaeus. Another megalithic monument was discovered in 1926 to south of Casablanca. The monument was engraved with funerary inscriptions in the Berber script known as Tifina. Herodotus mentioned that the ancient Berbers worshipped the moon and sun and sacrificed to them. He reported, "They begin with the ear of the victim, which they cut off and throw over the house. This done, they kill the animal by twisting the neck. They sacrifice to the sun and moon, but not to any other god." This worship is common to all the Libyans. Tullius Cicero also reported the same cult in On the Republic. "When I was introduced to him, the old man embraced me, shed tears, and then, looking up to heaven, exclaimed, 'I thank thee, O Supreme Sun, and you also, you other celestial beings, that before I departed from this life I behold in my kingdom, and in my palace.'" Publius Cornelius Scipio. There were some Latin inscriptions found in northwest Africa dedicated to the sun god. An example is the inscription found in Sukkara's written Solo Deo Invicto. Samuel the Confessor appears to have suffered from the sun-worshipping Berbers who tried unsuccessfully to force him to worship the sun. The Berber Pantheon also contained multiple gods, known as the dii Maori, represented on reliefs and also the subject of dedications. During the Roman period, Saturn was the focus of an important cult, subsuming that of Baal-Hamon, a deity of Punic origin. Berber-Egyptian beliefs. The ancient Egyptians were the neighbors of the Berbers. Therefore, it is sometimes supposed that some deities were originally worshipped by the ancient Egyptians, and the ancient Libyans as well. The Egyptian Berber deities can be distinguished according to their origin. Egyptian deities the Eastern ancient Berbers worship, Isis and Set, that was reported by Herodotus when saying, "cow's flesh." However, none of these tribes ever taste, but abstain from it for the same reason as the Egyptians. Neither do they any of them breed swine. Even at Syene, the women think it wrong to eat the flesh of the cow, honoring in this Isis, the Egyptian goddess, whom they worship both with fasts and festivals. The Basian women abstain, not from cow's flesh only, but also from the flesh of swine. Those Berbers supposedly did not eat the flesh of swine, because it was associated with Set, while they did not eat the cow's flesh, because it was associated with Isis. Osiris was among the Egyptian deities who were venerated in Libya. However, Budge believed that Osiris was originally a Libyan god, saying of him that everything which the texts of all periods recorded concerning him goes to show that he was an indigenous god of northeast Africa, and that his home and origin were possibly Libyan. Berber deities. The Egyptians considered some Egyptian deities to have had a Libyan origin, such as Neith, who has been considered by Egyptians to have emigrated from Libya to establish her temple at Sais in the Nile Delta. Some legends tell that Neith was born around Lake Tritons. It is also notable that some Egyptian deities were depicted with Berber characters, such as Amon, who was depicted with 2 feathers, which were the normal ornaments of the ancient Libyans as they were depicted by the ancient Egyptians. Amen is a common deity. The most remarkable common god of the Berbers and the Egyptians was Ammon. This god is hard to attribute to only one pantheon, although most modern sources ignore the existence of Ammon in Berber mythology. He was maybe the greatest ancient Berber god. He was honored by the ancient Greeks in Cyrenaica and was united with the Phoenician god Baal due to Libyan influence. Early depictions of rams across North Africa have been dated to between 9600 BC and 7500 BC. The most famous temple of Ammon in ancient Libya was the augural temple at Siwa in Egypt, an oasis still inhabited by Berbers. Phoenician-Berber beliefs. The Phoenicians were originally a Semitic people that inhabited the coasts of modern Lebanon and Tunisia. They were seafarers and they founded Carthage in 814 BC. They later gave birth to the so-called Punic culture, which had its roots in the Berber and Phoenician cultures. Some scholars distinguish the relationships between the Phoenicians and the Berbers in two phases before the Battle of Himera. When the Phoenicians established in Northwest Africa, they stayed in the coastal regions to avoid wars with the Berbers. They maintained the deities which they brought from the homelands. The early Carthaginians had two important deities, Baal and Astarte. After the Battle of Himera, Carthage began to ally with the Berber tribes after the Battle of Himera, in which the Carthaginians were defeated by the Greeks. In addition to political changes, the Carthaginians imported some of the Berber deities. Baal was the primary god worshipped in Carthage. Depictions of this deity are found in several sites across northwest Africa. The goddess Astarte was replaced by a native goddess, Tanit, which is thought to be of Berber origin. The name itself, Tanit, has a Berber linguistic structure. Feminine names begin and end with T in the Berber languages. Some scholars believe that the Egyptian goddess Neith was related to the Libyan goddess Tanit. There are also Massile and Phoenician names that apparently contain roots from the god Baal, such as Adherbal and Hannibal. Greek-Berber beliefs. The ancient Greeks established colonies in Cyrenaica. The Greeks influenced the Eastern Berber Pantheon, but they were also influenced by Berber culture and beliefs. Generally, the Libyan-Greek relationships can be divided into two different periods. In the first period, the Greeks had peaceful relationships with the Libyans. Later, there were wars between them. These social relationships were mirrored in the beliefs. Before the Battle of Ararasa, the first notable appearance of Libyan influence on the Cyrenaican Greek beliefs is the name Cyrenaica itself. This name was originally the name of a legendary Berber woman warrior who was known as Saya. Saya was, according to the legend, a courageous lion-hunting woman. She gave her name to the city Cyrenaica. The emigrating Greeks made her the protector besides the Greek god Apollo. The Greeks of Cyrenaica seemed also to have adopted some Berber customs and intermarried with the Berber women. Herodotus reported that the Libyans taught the Greeks how to yoke 4 horses to a chariot. The Cyrenaican Greeks built temples for the Libyan god Ammon instead of their original god Zeus. They later identified the supreme god Zeus with the Libyan Ammon. Some of them continued worshipping Ammon himself. Ammon's cult was so widespread among the Greeks that even Alexander the Great decided to be declared as the son of Zeus in the Sawan temple by the Libyan priests of Ammon. The ancient historians mentioned that some Greek deities were of Libyan origin. The daughter of Zeus, Athena, was considered by some ancient historians, like Herodotus, to have been of Libyan origin. Those ancient historians stated that she was originally honored by the Berbers around Lake Tritonis, where she has been born from the god Poseidon, and Lake Tritonis, according to the Libyan legend. Herodotus wrote that the aegis and the clothes of Athena are typical for Libyan woman. Herodotus also stated that Poseidon was adopted from the Libyans by the Greeks. He emphasized that no other people worshipped Poseidon from early times apart from the Libyans who spread his cult. These, I think, received the naming from the Pelasgians, except Poseidon. But about this god the Hellenes learned from the Libyans. For no people except the Libyans have had the name of Poseidon from the first and have paid honor to this god always. Some other Greek deities were related to Libya. The goddess Lamia was believed to have originated in Libya, like Medusa and the Gorgons. The Greeks seem also to have met the god Triton in Libya. The Greeks may have believed that the Hesperides was situated in modern Morocco. Some scholars situated in Tangier where Antaeus lived. According to some myths, the Hesperides were believed to be the daughters of Atlas, a god that is associated with the Atlas Mountains by Herodotus. The Atlas Mountain was worshipped by the Berbers, and the Canary Islands represent to many the daughters of Atlas. After the Battle of Ararasa, the Greeks and the Masla began to break the harmony in the period of Battus II. Battus II began secretly to invite other Greek groups to Libya, Tunisia and East Algeria. The Libyans and Masla considered that as a danger that had to be stopped. The Berbers began to fight against the Greeks, sometimes in alliance with the Egyptians and other times with the Carthaginians. Nevertheless, the Greeks were the victors. Some historians believe that the myth of Antaeus was a reflection of those wars between the Libyans and Greeks. The legend tells that Antaeus was the undefeatable protector of the Masile. He was the son of the god Poseidon and Gaia. He was the husband of the Berber goddess Tingis. He used to protect the lands of the Berbers until he was slain by the Greek hero Heracles, who married Tingis. The learned client King Juba II of Mauritania, husband of the daughter of Antony and Cleopatra, claimed his descent from a liaison of Hercules with Tinga, the consort of Antaeus. Some sources describe Antaeus as the king of Ararasa. Plutarch reported that his son founded Tingi after his mother. In Greek iconography, Antaeus was clearly distinguished as being different from the Greeks in appearance. He was depicted with long hair and a beard that was typical for the Eastern Libyans. Roman-Berber beliefs. The Romans allied firstly with the Masile against Carthage. They defeated Carthage in 146 BC, but later, they also annexed Masala to the Roman Empire. The imperial period. According to Pliny the Elder, the Libyans honored the war goddess Ifri or Africa, who was considered to be the protector of her worshippers and was depicted on the Berber coins, and seemed to have been an influential goddess in North Africa. This goddess was represented in diverse ways on Numidian coins from the 1st century BC. When the Romans conquered northwest Africa, she appeared in sculpture and on the coins of the Roman states in North Africa. The Roman Pantheon seems to have been adopted generally, although the cult of Saturn, as mentioned above, was perhaps the most important. A new god appears in later texts, identified with tribes such as the Osturiani outside the Roman frontiers of Libya. Gurzil was a war god who identified with the son of Amin. He was taken by the Berbers to the battles against the Byzantines. Coropas mentioned that the chiefs of the Laguata took the god Gurzil into battle against the Byzantines and Arabs. It is very likely that the sanctuary of Gurzil was located in Girsa in Libya, where remarkable reliefs show a noble Libyan receiving tribute while seated on a curule chair.